Welcome back to the podcast, everyone. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I can't thank you enough. Super stoked you guys are here, tuning in. I appreciate it. Today I have Sam, aka Bowie Kokemir, best Instagram handle in the game. Been doing it for a long time, coming straight out of Boston, representing the East Coast. I'm glad to have a different perspective here on the show. He is a highly curated vintage dealer, heavy in t-shirts, but also rare true vintage. And we get into some of that on the show. We talk about true vintage. We talk about the East Coast. We talk about what's going on in Boston, his history coming up in New York. We talk about Brimfield, super interesting stuff. I've never been, but I need to go. We also drop a vintage quiz on him that he absolutely crushes. And it is an awesome listen. Got to throw this out there. He will be popping up at the LA Rendezvous, which is an event put on by the Vintage Production guys in Huntington Beach on February 13th. So it's coming up. If you're in California, go check out the LA Vintage Rendezvous. I'll put that link in the show notes to more info about that event. In the news today, I hired a producer. This show is produced by my new producer, John Molfetta. Shout out to him. He came on board to the show. So now this is a two-man team, okay? Also on this episode with Bowie Kokemir, we dropped some questions from the patrons on Patreon, okay? Like I said before, this is a podcast funded by the people. That is you guys. So if you want to support, if you want to drop questions for our listeners, if you want to see all the extra show notes, we also recorded an extra segment on this show that will only be available on the Patreon. A lot of good info there. So check out my Patreon. Link down below. Thank you guys for supporting, and shout out to all the patrons who continue to support. I see you. I appreciate you all. Okay. Without further ado, let's get into Bowie Kokemir.
Vintage clothing by the rack, yeah. Just check out my Insta, how you gon' argue with that? Everything you see I manifest. I'm an architect, I think I'ma run it back. We got vintage clothing by the rack. Just check out my Insta, how you gon' argue with that? Everything you see I manifest. I'm an architect, I think I'll have some of that.
Sam, welcome to the show.
What's up, Drew? Happy to be here, man. Thanks for having me.
Hell yeah, thanks for coming on. You're coming to us from the East Coast.
Yeah, man.
Representing B-Town.
Yeah, man. I'm in Boston. That's where I live. That's where I'm from. I'm coming live from my showroom right now. I'm actually in Rhode Island, just outside of Providence. So that's where I work and do my thing. And
so you commute back and forth?
Yeah, it's like about 30, 40-minute drive from the house. It's not a big deal, but it's definitely a different area, different vibe.
That's cool.
Yeah, I'm in an old industrial mill building with a lot of great history. There's a lot of early American clothing history around these parts. Like the oldest cotton mill in America is right down the street. So it's a cool area to work from, man.
What's that mill called?
It's the Slater Mills.
Are they still going?
Nah, it's like basically a museum now. But you know, a lot of the architecture is still around, so it's a cool like vibes.
Yeah, that's something I miss from the East Coast is the age to it, man. When you live on the West Coast, everything's so much newer, right? We're like, you know, your East Coast is like a few hundred years older. There's so much more history there, right?
Yeah. The Industrial Revolution, a lot of history, man. It's cool.
Super rad. Okay, we'll get into that more, but let's get into you and your history, man. You know, I want to know how you started. How'd you get into this crazy business?
Well, I would say my interest in vintage clothing and when I actually started a vintage clothing business are two kind of happened at two separate junctures of my life. Like we were just talking about being from the same kind of age bracket. I think we had a lot of kind of similar influences being around, the emergence of like streetwear in the early to mid 90s, which was very heavily influenced by vintage clothing from different eras, from like hippie stuff to workwear, and always just had that interest in thrifting and all that kind of stuff. Like a lot of people in every generation coming up these days, the only difference is, we didn't have the kind of technology to just sell stuff immediately back then like we do today. So it was always just more for myself and just personal influence. And then fast forward to about 10 years ago, I was really burnt out on a career in graphic design that I had been pursuing for quite some time and went to school for. And I was living in New York, came back to Boston to pursue my freelance business, and just found myself procrastinating from doing the design work, just buying vintage and kind of immersing myself into like what was happening online with a lot of vintage sellers kind of popping up, and realizing like I'd have a lot more fun and a lot more creative freedom in what I was doing, just pursuing that as a career. So I kind of started my vintage business a little bit later in life with some more kind of refined ideas of how I wanted to approach it, and both aesthetically and also from a business standpoint, and just making it work. And so like at a certain point, I just kind of closed up shop with the design business and just hopped straight into the vintage biz, man. Just coming in full force and just going for it,
That's awesome. So when you talk about how you thought it through before you jumped into the game, and you kind of had, because you're already interested in clothing, you have a good fashion background just from growing up in the eras, and maybe like very clear direction of where you want to take it. So what was that direction, and like how did you mold your business model based on that?
Well, so at the time, this was kind of right before the current wave of t-shirt craziness that we're in today. And I was always very much t-shirt focused, just with my own style. And so my concept right out the gate was to just be a vintage t-shirt dealer. And at that time, even though it was right on the cusp of before, the kind of t-shirt wave that we're in now, it was still kind of a bit of a novelty into marketing yourself specifically as a vintage t-shirt dealer. And so I just came out the gate with all the best t-shirts I could find, and just put myself out there exclusively as that, which changed pretty quickly once I started getting into it. But that was kind of my basic concept.
Can you remember back then, like lanes of t-shirts that you were really into?
Yeah, man. I mean, for me, like all the early punk stuff was very like much what I was into. I was very into like finding all that early seditionary stuff, and just kind of came out with that level of like t-shirt. And the like 90s alternative like t-shirts and hip hop and stuff like that was still just kind of like, people were kind of like, is that even vintage yet?
Yeah,
you know what
totally.
I mean, kind of thing. And then, but very quickly that became kind of like the main thing that people were looking for in the last like handful of years. So,
yeah.
And also I very much like curation, and I'm very detail oriented, and I like presenting collections. And so I started off on eBay, but I like dealing with people directly and getting that kind of feedback. And so like kind of right out the gate, I started, I set up a shop in this vintage market that we have in Boston that's was only open on like Sundays, but it was like an indoor market. So I had my space that I could like work on week to week. And that was kind of like the genesis of, developing what I do today,
Yeah, I scrolled back all the way to the bottom of your Instagram,
Yeah.
and it's not that deep.
Nah.
You have not posted a lot of photos, or maybe you have and you've erased them, or you just have been that curated this whole time.
Yeah, I have, man. Yeah. You
And
know,
when you talk about dropping collections, like how do you like? Would you be presenting collections? Say like this week at the Flea, I'm bringing out like a certain group and a certain vibe.
at that time, it wasn't that specific. It was more just really getting into what I like. And the general theme of what I would present is my own personal taste and really just starting at the bottom, um, trying to see how people reacted to it and
Yeah,
kind of going from there. And there
figure it
wasn't,
out.
yeah, just kind of figured out. And, but it's always based off of like what I like first. You know what I mean?
Yeah, as it should be, dude. And
Of course.
were you in Boston this whole time when you started into vintage?
Yeah, started the business in Boston.
So
So
how is the scene there? You know, is there a lot of, I don't really know. So most of the guests on the
yeah,
show have been West Coast based.
yeah, yeah,
I tend to stick up and down the West Coast.
yeah,
I don't know if you listen to many of the show, but
yeah,
I have, I have a history on the East Coast. Me and Jesse went to school in Vermont.
yeah, man. So as did I. Actually went to Goddard for like 2 semesters, man.
Oh, no way.
Yeah,
Yeah, and we love the East Coast because we were from
yeah,
Ontario. So, if you
yeah,
vacation into the States, you typically go to New England.
yeah,
And then I went to school in Vermont. I used to go to UVM. On weekends, we'd go to Boston all the time.
yeah, man.
Mostly to skateboard, to tell you the
Yeah.
truth, because, I'm like 15, 16, 17 years old. And I fucking love Boston, dude. I haven't been there
Did
in
you
so
ever
long.
skate at Maximus? It was a skate park called Maximus that, like, basically, I'm not sure when it sort of petered out, but my time there was definitely like 92 to 94 ish is when I would
Yeah,
skate
I was
there.
probably more like 96, 98
Okay, yeah, because
period
it
of time.
went to the rollerbladers at that point, I think. But
Oh, really? Yeah, we would usually just skate street, like that
yeah,
famous spot downtown. I don't know if it's downtown, but that huge brick courtyard.
yeah,
Um,
the hospital with the banks.
oh, the hospital with the volcano bank.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, we went there a couple times, but I remember getting
Okay.
kicked out of there for sure.
Yeah, they recreated that now. There's like a crazy new skate park, and they actually like recreated some of the classic Boston spots and the Copley Ledge and all that. But
That's rad, dude.
yeah, yeah,
I got to make it back there. So I kind of want like your perspective on the Boston vintage scene.
yeah.
Um, like, is there a lot of dealers? There's a lot of shops. Like, what's going on right now?
I mean, we come from like a good cloth, man, because we had Bobby from Boston, pioneering and leading the way, and just incredible taste. And his store in the South End was actually in the building where that vintage market was,
Okay.
where I got started. And we were in the basement, and he had the storefront upstairs. And it's, there was kind of like in my time, there was a little bit of a quiet period for like a few years where there wasn't a lot going on locally, and Bobby had like passed away. And but I'd say within the last 3 or 4 years, I think with every city, there's been a big emergence of like younger dealers like developing and coming out and just going crazy. So now the scene, I'd say, is stronger than it's ever been in my time in Boston. But I think that's like also just kind of consistent with like every city and the times we live in, and kids just kind of taking the reign on doing what they want to do.
So, Bobby from Boston is very famous in the scene, especially
Yeah.
with the older dealers and everyone who's been in it a long time.
Yeah.
I don't have a history with him at all, really, because, like I said, I was mostly West Coast throughout my whole career. Can you, like, give us a little bit of background on him? I know a lot of people talk about him.
Yeah. I mean, I knew Bobby at the very end. I wasn't super tight with him, but I have older dealers that I am very tight with that are of his generation and grew up. So I know a lot of the stories, and I've heard a lot of funny, like, firsthand anecdotes. But I mean, that dude was just a trailblazer on all fronts. As far as I know, he opened his first shop in the 70s down in Provincetown.
Wow.
And then later, moved his operation into the city, and just legendary stuff, man, from like, doing store concepts that were influential to Ralph Lauren to, just the dude just did it all, you know what I mean? And with so much class, and like really put the blueprint down for how to operate and just have a good time with it. So I can't really speak on him too much more than just
Yeah, that's fair, man. Just like
the big influence, the general influence that he definitely had on me and people that I deal with is amazing. So,
because I didn't even really know if he was, so he had retail stores, but he was also like a dealer to a lot of Japanese and stuff too.
absolutely. And to this day, he still has a warehouse in just outside of Boston that you can pick and shop at and stuff like that. So the business is still operating, and his daughter is running things, and it's a force, man. There's no denying it. But yeah, he laid the blueprint for a lot of that stuff of some of the earliest Japanese buyers coming through were interacting with him and all that. So
do you see Japanese buyers coming through Boston now?
For me personally, absolutely, man. I mean, that's a big part of my business at this point. I kind of cater the showroom to that vibe, and I personally love like old stuff and just the kind of stuff that they're into. I'm learning all the time, and it's great. It's a great facet of the business.
How did you transition? I don't know when you started if you knew a lot of people in this business or not, but how did you transition from your beginnings with t-shirts into, because you post crazy shit. You post crazy true vintage pieces. You're like one of the guys that gets like insane stuff.
I appreciate that, man.
Yeah, dude, it's super rad to see. And so how did you transition into that and like learn about it and start finding it and figuring it all out?
So it basically it happened pretty quick, man, because like I said, from a business perspective, once I decided I wanted to do a vintage clothing business, I was all in, and on all fronts. And the t-shirts were the most tangible thing that I knew I had experience with, and I already had, I was comfortable with my taste level. So just going to the highest degree out the gate that I could with the t-shirts, kind of quickly put me around people that have been around for much longer than I have, that had already had developed taste in other areas of vintage clothing. And I found myself rubbing elbows with a lot of these kind of dealers and buyers and stuff. And I'm a quick study, and I just kind of jumped right into it, because when I see something that's cool, I'm all about it. And so when I was doing the vintage market, my neighbors next door were Molly and Ben, who are
Nice.
Desires.
Yeah.
And they were just in the infancy of starting their business and figuring it out. They were actually doing a lot of general antiques at the time and had some clothing. So together we all just went crazy with the clothing and came up on that. And so actually the booth directly next to mine was actually Molly's parents, who are classic antique dealers. And then Molly was next to them. And they're big Brimfield people. And most of the dealers at that market were Brimfield people, and just brought me right in the fold. And so quickly after I got the space there, I started doing Brimfield, just started going crazy at Brimfield. And like one of the first seasons, I'm chilling, and Rin Tanaka comes like walking into my booth. And I knew who he was, but I didn't want to like blow up the spot. I was more interested in just kind of laying back and watching and seeing him vibe off of what I had. And he was loving it. He was so like, he was hyping it up. And he actually bought like one of the best tees I had in the booth that day, which was a dead stock Plasmatics Wendy Will Win shirt that I bought off of this guy that was like, it was like a benefit show to get Wendy O. Williams out of jail after on some like indecent exposure, like shock rock shit. And I bought like a couple t-shirts and like a poster and the pins and all that. And Rin came through and he scooped the t-shirt and invited me to do the next inspiration show, which was right when they were experimenting with doing it in New York. So it was like about a month out before the New York show. And he just like rolled out the red carpet for me and like brought me into the fold with doing his show and just like made sure that everything was straight and just killed it. And then it was nice because when Rin pulled up to the show, he was wearing the shirt. So like everybody that took pictures with Rin that day, he's rocking it, which was just kind of like a little nice behind the scenes shout out to me that I'm doing it right, you know? And
Yeah, that's rad.
yeah, and so just jumping in early with Rin and doing inspiration and just kind of, like I was saying, just already just being on the level with the t-shirts, I was like, man, you know, I love all this denim and workwear and military stuff too, man. Let me just get it popping. And here we are, you know, so really had a lot of, you know, good finds and success with that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's rad. We did the New York inspiration.
Yeah.
And that was, they only did one, or did they do a second one?
They did two, actually. So I might have missed you because I pulled in on the second one.
Okay, so we never went back for the second one.
Yeah.
But we've been at the LA inspiration since the first round.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which was super rad. I remember that first round. It was in the airport hangar.
Yeah.
Santa Monica Airport.
Crazy, man.
SMA. Yeah, SMA, exactly. Super rad.
Yeah.
And that was like, I can remember it clearly because it was right during the hippie boom times.
Yeah.
When East West were popping off, any kind of folk art hippie pieces were popping off crazy.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's a great concept. And Rin, like, you know, killed it with that for years and years.
Yeah. And hopefully October, man, we'll be back once again, man. I'm keeping my fingers crossed.
He's talking about October as the next date.
That's the rumor, you know, nothing confirmed.
Yeah.
But I don't think he wants to like break away from the LA Convention Center. So until that's open, I don't think he's trying to do it anywhere else. But
yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, and then right after the New York show, it was like, you know, coming up. That was like October, and then in the February was LA. So I just flew out to LA, did that one, and just haven't looked back on doing inspiration since.
Nice. I want to talk more about Brimfield, man.
Okay.
I've never been to Brimfield.
Really, man?
And it's kind of one of those rites of passage, sort of like Rose Bowl for pickers, especially on the East Coast, but kind of for anyone who's like really in the game, you know?
For sure. Yeah.
And
Brimfield's epic, man.
Yeah, give us the rundown because it's a lot different than your typical flea market. They open up different fields, different days. There's so many more vendors.
Yeah, it's madness, man. It's a week straight. Opening days on the Tuesday, closes out that next Sunday. And like you said, it's there's like a main road that goes down for quite a bit, and there's different fields on either side of the road that are independently owned by different, you know, people, and different fields have different vibes, you know, like some are more known for furniture, some are more known for like your grandpa's antiques, some are a little more hype these days, and like there's a schedule throughout the week where the field's just open, and you just got to be in it if you really want to do it right, you know. And there's you get early passes, and there's a whole culture of that, just people going nuts, like getting in early, and it's a wild time, man. And so
had you gone before you sold there?
I had, with pretty limited experience, and but being surrounded by people that had a lot of experience with Brimfield, I got kind of pulled right in pretty quickly and kind of got the lay of the land, and you know, met a lot of great buyers, some of the first Japanese buyers I really dealt with, and still to this day. So it's nutty, man. It's something you got to do it one of these days, man.
Oh, for sure.
If it happens again.
Yeah, well, fuck.
You know.
Let's hope so. But I really want to go out there because I do, like I said, I love the East Coast. I just want to tour around, you know, go see some old places and do Brimfield and like, you know, there's a lot on the East Coast that I haven't experienced. Jesse tends to go out to New York a lot more than I do, but I don't even think he's been back to Boston in a while.
Yeah, I mean, if you guys want to come to Boston, obviously, I got you. pulling
You
out
got
the
a couch? You
carpet.
got to pull out?
We got everything at the pull out, man. We got the, you know, if you come to Brimfield, I got you, man.
That's awesome, dude. Stoked. And so it's in Brimfield, Mass, right? Is that where it is?
Brimfield, Mass. Yeah.
And this is like a country town, correct?
Yeah, it's kind of like central Mass heading towards western Mass. It's like past Worcester if you're coming from the East Coast, but not quite all the way out to the Berkshires.
How far outside of Boston?
It's about an hour drive, a little over an hour.
That's chill.
Yeah.
Cool.
I go home at the end of the night, man, because I'm cooked, man. And then I just get up early. Like, I'll sleep for 3 hours and then, get in the whip at like 4 or 5 a.m. and head right back.
Yeah. And another thing about Brimfield or any flea, like if you're there selling,
yeah,
will you have time to go picking and buying?
Yeah. So I was in a tent that's referred to as like the fashion tent. It was all clothing dealers, and it was run by this lady Donna from St. Louis, who's a super like triple OG like dealer who's done it all, and she runs a great tent. And so I would just like half the time close up my booth, just be out in the fields and just have like a note, with my phone number on it. But usually like most of the, you get everybody there, from the most hardcore dealers to the most casual shoppers. And a lot of the casual shoppers in the vintage tent where I would be wouldn't really roll around until after the real hardcore hours anyway. And so like most of the time I'd be out from the crack of dawn to like the late morning, just doing my thing, and then kind of post up in the tent after. But it is a struggle.
Yeah.
There's, there's so much going on, man.
How, without giving, you can give as much away if you want, whatever. But like, the East Coast it's older. We've already mentioned that. There's so much more history there, and there is more. So that means there's older clothing there, for
sure,
potentially.
Yeah.
There's different manufacturers on the East Coast than there is the
100%.
West Coast. Levi's is West Coast.
Yeah.
Filson's West Coast.
Yeah.
What are some good East Coast brands?
Oh man, I mean, one of the most classic is Browns Beach, obviously.
Browns Beach.
And from the heart of the city is Double Wear, which is I'm a big Double Wear collector.
Nice.
Actually, in the showroom, I have a huge Double Wear sign that was in Bobby's shop for many years, and ended up at Brimfield, man, and passed through a few dealers' hands real quick, and I ended up with it. So yeah, man, Double Wear is like, I'm always looking out for Double Wear, built well. Hildreth is another one from Worcester. It's an old workwear company that's like had some amazing pieces that I've had. Cool. There's a lot, man. And then just kind of up the East Coast, man, the Brattleboro like company, Carter's like from New Hampshire. There's a lot on the East Coast, man. But I'd say Double Wear, Browns Beach, Hildreth. Those are the.
And I've seen you post Browns Beach, so you obviously get a good chunk of that.
Yeah, for sure, man.
That is one of those items that I probably didn't even know about until years into the business. I probably passed it up a few times because I'm just like, this looks like just a funky wool coat type thing. It's like kind of unassuming until you really know what you're dealing with, right?
Sure.
But how do you find the picking and, without, whatever, like dive into how do you find old vintage with as much as you want to give away?
I mean, like I stay grinding at the flea markets, man. I'm out at the right, I hit all the angles, man, and a lot of it is networking too. You just gotta talk to people and just like keep an open mind and be nice and see what pops up, man. Cause you never know, like you say, unassuming, some old guy at the flea market, you never know, you know what I mean? And just plugging in, like I've had the privilege of like plugging in with some old school dealers from the area who're still sitting on stuff and been able to get a lot of good pieces off them too. So it's, it's just the nonstop consistency that gets it. The stuff is here. It's just a matter of like staying on it,
Yeah. So I want to talk about your showroom too for a minute here.
Yeah.
But I think, there's different angles you can take in this business. You can go open a retail store. You can be an eBay guy. You could be only a live auction guy. There's like all these different angles.
Yeah.
how do you develop a customer base for a showroom in a way that's sustainable, where it's viable as a business model?
Yeah. Well, the showroom that I'm in now is a fairly recent space, so I haven't had it for a while, but it's a long time coming. And just being around and just networking for years, I used to have people come to the house, and I live in an old like mill building where there's a little private clubhouse. So that used to be my showroom, and I just dragged bins in there, and people would hit me up and shop there. But I really needed a place to, show off the collection, man, and just enjoy the pieces that I've worked hard to find. And so now this has been like a paradise, and people love coming here. And, even in the pandemic, I've had a pretty consistent stream of buyers come through, appointment only, obviously.
Yeah.
Everything is safe and sanitized, but yeah, man, it's just it's something that needed to happen after cultivating a client base for quite some time and being fringy about selling, and now I have a destination, which is great.
And it's good to separate it a little bit from if you're at your house and your
Yeah.
work's there and your people are coming and you're around the clothes all day. Sometimes it's like too much. You need to
Yeah.
have a moment and get away from it.
Yeah.
And do you think with a showroom, because you want to attract clientele, you want to attract people, you have to hold product. You have to hold a good amount of product to make it always worthwhile.
Right.
To make them come.
Yeah.
Is that challenging?
Yeah, but it's a creative challenge that I welcome because it keeps me motivated. I can't slack. I have to have, I'll sell something out of my display case and I'm like, wow, now here's a place for something new to come in, and it's an exciting challenge that I really enjoy, man.
Nice.
So, just staying on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you could talk about, your transition from your previous job into this line of work, which is kind of a wild line of work, Sure, there's a lot of people in it now, but it still is, there's a lot of freedom in what we do.
Yeah.
But there can be a lot of ups and downs. There can be a lot of pressure. There's good times. There's bad times. And you, as somebody self-employed in general, but especially in this business, you take the brunt. You have to take it all, right?
Take it all, man. You take the L's and the W's all together all day long, man. But when you said the freedom, that's really what it came down to for me, man. Is I've always had an entrepreneurial spirit, and it's always been my goal to work for myself and really just absolutely love what I do. And since I was always into art and design, that's why I took the career path into graphic design, because I felt like it was something where I could be creative and work towards a freelance business, which I ultimately did. And that was great, but it wasn't giving me that total creative freedom that I was really looking for, to really love what I do. Because at the end of the day, it's like, yeah, you're the creator, but you're still like dancing for somebody else's design and having to noodle stuff in a way that maybe you don't want. And with the clothing, it's pure creative freedom because I just buy what I think is amazing, and you don't get it until the cash is in my hand, And so, transitioning into clothing really kind of broke that red tape of creative freedom that I was feeling constricted by with the design stuff. And I think that's had a huge role in my success with it, just because I bug when I find crazy stuff. And then the only thing more fun than finding something crazy is just getting cashed out for it crazy. And then it's I get to go do it again, Yeah. And I can take it at my own pace too. I don't have to wait for anybody's approval or anything. If I feel like going hard, I can go as hard as I need to. If I need to fall back and chill, it's I have the time and space to do that. So I think that was the main factor in the transition, was really just needing that creative freedom in what I do, because that's where I thrive the most, is in the detail and the curation. And when that becomes one of the main objectives of the job, it's everything else just falls into place,
Love it, man. I love it. What about a time in this journey where things were bad? Like, do you have any examples of times when you were having like a really rough time with it, or And if you don't, that's fine. I just like to talk about these because sometimes I think
Yeah.
everyone thinks it's all fucking roses, and
Well, I mean, honestly, man, last year was a trying times, man, because so much of what I love doing is shows and setting up, and a lot of my financial calendar is like based on doing different shows throughout the year. Brimfield being a huge one. There's the a textile show in Sturbridge that happens the day before Brimfield opening. That's another show, high end vintage clothing show that I always do. And last couple of years, I've been working with Bob Chat doing the LA Vintage Rendezvous, and that's been a great like boost to my year too. And so last year, it's like 6 major shows just got completely wiped off the map, and I had to kind of figure out like, what am I going to do to kind of supplement? And that was a challenge. And honestly, getting back into t-shirts and kind of going back to square one is what really gave me that boost that I needed, man, and really reinvigorated my love for like t-shirts where I started. And I got to give it up to Chris Fernandez, man, because he really laid the blueprint last year with giving so many people the opportunity to like sell t-shirts and make it happen. And I was lucky enough to hop on the virtual flea a few times, man. Had a big success with that. And that led to me hopping on other people's lives, man. And I went live with the thrift floor, and a couple of my guys local in Boston have been doing a weekly thing now. So it's just like adapting and getting back into the t-shirts made a really crazy, anxious kind of time really enjoyable and successful, man, last year. So.
Were you following Chris, or did somebody put you on after this was already happening?
I had been following Chris for a minute, man. He was doing that Vintage Awards thing a couple of years ago, and like I got my Instagram name got like nominated for like wackiest name or something like that, and like and I didn't win, but I was honored to be to nominated, and so I kind of was like. His Stash Raiders is amazing. Like that's one of the coolest series I've ever seen. And
so you saw the whole thing progress from the inception.
Yeah, man. Yeah, and like it was funny because I was probably tuning into some of the first virtual fleas and just kind of like keeping an eye on it and watching the quality and the dedication build. And I was just sort of thinking like, yo, if I ever hopped on this, I could probably just like look around the crib and put together a nice little collection and like crush. And I got on and I did, but it was almost kind of humbling because even though I did, it actually exceeded my expectations of what I was hoping for. But like, I wasn't like some superstar or something like that. I was just like another dude on his laundry list of like great vendors that he had that weekend, And so I was like, oh shit, I got to like step it up next time and really like do the damn thing, man. And then I've been on a few times after that, and it's always been amazing. So, yes, I've been on to Chris for a minute, man. he's the man.
Yeah, that's rad, dude. Yeah. So those first couple months of COVID, original lockdown.
Yeah.
Like, tell us what you were up to, if anything.
I was chilling, man. I mean, I was just like trying to figure out what the hell was going on, like everybody else. I was still buying, and I was hoping actually that people were going to start letting the stuff go for the low, but it turned out my network. Yeah, in my network, it was actually the opposite. All the good shit people were like scared to sell. So, but I was still buying and just kind of stashing, and I knew that there'd be light at the tunnel. So like, just trying to buy good. But like I think my buying habits got extra targeted and more specific because, like if I know that I got a Brimfield or Inspiration or something coming up, I got my staple pieces, but I also will experiment a little bit. I'm like, oh, this is a funky thing, maybe a little out of my wheelhouse. Let me learn some and try and, experiment, see how this goes over. So I had to kind of cut that and just stick with the like, yo, I'm buying double X's with leather patches. I'm buying like the tried and true. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a very good point that you make about the weird and out of out of the norm things, like something that just has a design feature, but it's not a name brand, or
Yeah,
a cool folk arty piece, but you're like, I can't really market that online because I don't even know what to call it.
exactly.
Those are the things that do great at shows, you know?
Exactly. Yeah.
And you have to feel it, you have to touch it, you have to walk up and just, it's something you didn't ever know you needed until you see it, and then it's like, I need that. And you're right. Like right now, I
Yeah.
can see them in the corner. I have boxes of stuff that was like Rose Bowl product, and I've been like pulling from it,
Yeah.
taking the kind of like like you say, typical easy to sell vintage pieces out and moving some product, but I still have boxes of this
Right.
just more interesting shit. And that's the
Yeah.
stuff that is, like that's the stuff you'd move at the shows, and you can't
Yeah.
really move right
And,
now.
and it's such like a great learning experience too when you bring that funky stuff out to the shows, because it's like, I just like to see how people react to it, or you're like what people are willing to buy, you know what I mean? And maybe I sell something too cheap, or maybe my price is too high, and then I can kind of adjust and learn from there and figure out like how to make it better next time. But you don't get that same kind of experience online, or have the luxury of doing that in a weird pandemic time. So it's like I just stuck to the denim for the last year for the most part at the beginning, and just tried to buy like solid shit. And then once the whole virtual flea and online like auction wave started happening, it just totally brought me back to square one with the tees, man. Because also a lot of my customers for the workwear and stuff like that are coming from Japan or coming from wherever, Thailand, and the t-shirt market, that's ours, man. That's what we're doing here. You know what I mean? That's
It
where,
is an American market.
you know what I mean? And like the prices I'd get for some t-shirts here are not even like a fraction of what somebody overseas might pay. So I think we
It
just really,
definitely changed, man. And
yeah,
it Japan used to be the buyer. Basically, for most categories, even through T-shirts, they
yeah,
would be paying more than locals would pay, America
for
would pay.
sure. Yeah.
But now it's completely changed. They're getting
Nah,
priced out
man.
on so many things.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I've only had a few Japanese appointments since COVID,
Yeah.
because I only got to go to LA once, and
Sure.
we really get none coming through Vancouver.
Yeah.
But yeah, some of the prices I was saying, they're like,
Yeah. On t-shirts.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
They're like, yo, go get it. Like, go do
Right.
you.
Yeah. No, for real, man. And you will, because the market's there right now. It's insane, man. That's,
Yeah.
I've been having fun with it.
Can you speak on the denim market a bit? Because I know that has been kind of booming on its own as well.
I mean, I think in terms of pricing, everything's just going up, man. And I think it's directly influenced by just these trying times that we're in and the travel restrictions, and it's hard. And like, I think like there's a lot of cultural kind of faux pas, it seems like, within like Japan, of dealers buying from each other. I don't fully understand it, but it's like they would much rather come and pay up from an American dealer and bring stuff back there to have it fresh than kind of like circulate it seems. And so I've just like been, seeing prices go nutty, man. And like, I think it's just part of the times that we're in, from my experience. But I'll take it, man. Cause it's harder to buy too, man. It's harder. Like, I'm not going to the flea market every weekend, and I can't count on that, so it's like some of the prices I have to pay are way up, and then I got to make my margin. So it's, I think all across the board, it's just denim's up.
Yeah.
As it always is anyway,
Japan really has, you're right about, it's got to be fresh. It's got to be fresh.
Yeah.
They don't want other people to see it.
Yeah.
But it kind of is smart in the mentality of the first time you show anything is the best time to sell it. And Larry talked about that too. Larry was like, the first guy never gets the deal. The second guy gets the deal, because now the first guy denied your price and you move it on and sell it cheaper to the next guy because it's not fresh anymore.
Right. Yeah, no, for sure, man. And especially like I cycle stuff. Like if something lasts a year of shows, like, that's the time to hit me up if I still have it.
Yeah, totally. I'm with you. And do you have attachment to like certain product? Like when you're out there, there's a lot of dealers that will be so attached to these products. And I'm like, dude, this has been in your booth for 10 months at the Rose Bowl. The price hasn't even dropped $1. Like, what are you attached to? What, or do you collect stuff as well?
You know, man, I like to say I am a collector, but my collection is whatever I have for sale at the moment. You know what I mean? I like having an organic, revolving collection of stuff because one thing I've realized is that no matter how crazy a piece I've had, there's always something crazy around the corner, man. I've never not been able to find something crazy. Like, you know what I mean? And I think it's just staying in that mentality of like, that's what I'm looking for. And then it happens. And so with that being the case, man, it's almost like the attachment isn't really there with the clothing just because I enjoy selling it so much too. You know? And I always find something crazy around the corner.
Yeah. I love it. And I love my mentality is it's an energy flow, right? Like if you let go of a sick piece, there's going to be another sick piece coming back around, and it's a circle, and it has to flow.
Man, yeah, I'm with that, man, for sure.
Nice.
But I mean, like obviously this shirt I'm wearing right now, it's like great fit, great condition. It's a rare shirt. I like seeing it in my hanging around in my closet. It's a 1930s Army denim pullover.
Yeah,
super clean.
It has like the tin buttons, Army.
Yeah,
tin buttons.
the zinc. U.S. says U.S. Army. Great.
Yeah, that thing is dark denim. For people listening that aren't watching, it has the two interesting front.
Yeah, these are
rectangle pockets.
Yeah, these are pockets. And I mean, like these are great, man. I've had them before. I've sold them. And this one just says this one fits me, man. So I'm rocking it. But like, totally. there'll be a time where I'll let this go. Man. So it's like I don't hold on to anything that often. And I mean, I love the bootleg rap tees. Like I go crazy for those, but I sell those too. So it's yeah, there's always something else, man.
Do you have any in your rotating wardrobe at the moment? Rap tees?
Yeah, man, I do. I got a few good ones, but people are just so nutty for those right now, man. It's hard to hang on to them. It's like every time you wear it, it's like depreciating like a car. You know what I mean? I'd rather just sell it before there's another armpit starts blowing out. You know what I mean?
Totally. Okay, I got a couple Patreon questions.
Okay, man.
From the supporters of the show. Okay.
All right.
First question comes from Fine and Dandy Throwback. Great guy.
Enrique, shout out.
Yeah. Okay. He's New York City.
Yeah, man. I know him from Brimfield.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
So he says, what's the biggest lesson you've learned about yourself in all these years of collecting vintage?
I would have to say that everything that I've wanted in terms of like working towards just having creative freedom to really love what I do and just holding on to that idea after shit clients and whack jobs and all that, like, is real. And I'm like, I've just learned, maybe not learned, but more just reinforced to just go with your gut, man, and just really just go for it. And like, what else are you gonna do in life? Just do it, man. Just do you. And it's just being in the vintage biz has just been a big confirmation of that. So I guess that's the lesson, man.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, next question from Patreon member is TLA Bori. Okay, I'll link these guys down below in the show notes here. But he says, any good resources you've found to help avoid t-shirt fakes? I'm a longtime collector and have a good eye for true vintage, but fairly new to the 80s to 2000s t-shirt game, which is the shit right now.
Yeah.
You seem to want to run a wide range of errors, so I thought I'd ask.
For t-shirts specifically?
For t-shirts.
Yeah. I would say, Instagram is such a great resource that we have right now because there's so many amazing collectors and people that just like love showing off their collections. And, just follow people that have the kind of stuff that you like, and like, don't be afraid to reach out if you have a question, but also put yourself in that person's shoes and feel like, if somebody has a lot of stuff that you like and they're really doing it the way you think is cool, like, they put a lot of work in to get there. So just be respectful and like make sure that you're not usurping them for knowledge. A compliment goes a long way, but Instagram is such a great resource right now for seeing people's collections. It used to be Defunct. It was like the fucking place to learn about t-shirts. When I first started selling tees, I read every single article, every single forum post, looked at every photo that you could possibly see on Defunct. I haven't looked at it in a while. I'm not sure how much of the original website is still up, but
I think it's up, but they hadn't
yeah,
posted in a while. But
yeah, that was the number one
yeah.
reference point for me. You know,
Wax and
just
Threads said they're doing a few articles right now.
oh yeah, no, Wax and Threads was like, you know, one of the most official dudes on there when I discovered the site, and just like I learned about dry rot from reading his early article on Defunct. You know, great resource for tags, and you know, I mean that's for the first time it ever occurred to me. Oh, single stitch on a t-shirt. You know, just going. I mean, just reading and so yeah, check that out. But you know, just stay on Instagram and just stick with the people with the cool stuff. I'd say, you know,
yeah.
Don't be afraid to have a conversation.
You make a couple good points there. It is tricky now to identify certain bootlegs, especially the real good ones.
Yeah.
Obviously, like there's certain colorways that weren't made, and there's certain identifying factors. There's small details on tags, but to be honest, half of those small, minute details, I couldn't even tell you.
Oh man, I somebody was like showing me a shirt the other day that they got called out for being fake, and I was like, the reasoning was way beyond like anything I'd notice off the top of my head, but. I think a tried and true tip would also be just go for the natural wear and tear, man. Because like, you know, there's certain kinds of wear that you just can't fake, and like, you know, t-shirts are worn in better anyway, in my opinion. Like, I'd much rather have like a nice faded out t-shirt with a cool.
Yeah, you know, that's so true.
You know what I mean?
If you're copying online or copying on eBay, which probably is the number one place to get the fakes now.
Yeah.
You know, like talk to the seller. Talk to the seller, because you're going to get a pretty good idea if it's authentic just by a few quick responses by the seller. Like, where did you get it? You know, what do you do? Check the other listings to see if they're selling like a bunch of wrap tees. And you're like, well, it's probably not legit.
That's a great point too, for sure. Yeah. It's communication, man, you know?
Yeah, totally.
100%. And like, you know, the more you just look to, the more you get, you know, the more you buy and the more you handle, you can just sort of start to get a better sense. So also just handling stuff, try to handle as much stuff as you can, you know, which is hard when you're buying online, but like that'll definitely give you a good foundation as well.
Yeah. And all that knowledge comes with time. You can't fake the funk. You can't read it in a book.
Right.
You have to be around it. And I think we're kind of going through a time right now with this boom where a lot of the inflated values on certain categories of t-shirts right now are because the people who are getting involved haven't had enough time around vintage in general and to see like what is rare and what isn't rare.
Right.
And I'm no judgment call on those people or like what the categories are, but it's like, you know, for someone like you who's been deep in t-shirts for 10 years, like you really know what a real rare t-shirt is.
Sure. Selling t-shirts for 10 years, man. I mean,
yeah.
Owning crazy t-shirts way beyond that.
Beyond that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to see. And I always say that because it's just kind of, I watch the markets. Obviously I'm interested in this business. I'm like super deep in it. Right.
Yeah.
And that's why I do these podcasts and I talk to people because I'm super interested in it all. Yeah,
no, it's amazing content, man. You know.
Thanks. Yeah. This is going to be a good one.
Yeah.
And I'm just interested to see where this market goes.
Yeah.
And, you know, like yourself, like you said, you started in t-shirts and then you really moved into true vintage and design and detail. And I think a lot of people will go that direction.
Yeah.
Because the real people who are in this for the right reasons want to learn, and you got to keep learning.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Oh, I always consider myself a student number one, man. You know what I mean? Like, I'm no expert, I'm no OG, you know, any of that. I mean, I appreciate a compliment, but like, I'm a student number one, man.
Nice.
Yeah.
And back to that fake t-shirt identifier comment. It's so true what you said. A compliment goes a long way.
Yeah.
I'll get people hitting me all day for information on things. I'm pretty good about it. I'm pretty open to help. I'm chill.
Yeah.
But when you hit me and I don't reply, I'm in the middle of my workday, and then you get at me with like a salty comment later that day, like, yo, you fucking dog. I'm like, bro, I'm running a bit. I have like 20 employees here to run. I'm running a business, and you're bugging me for like a date on a tag of a t-shirt.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hold your horses, people.
No, for sure, man. And then like, make sure if you're going to hit somebody up, like for some information and they want to buy it, give them a chance to buy it, man. That's like,
that's true too.
Because the value that they're giving you, the information that they're giving you is, you could essentially say, has dollar value at the same time. It's a person's time. It's like knowledge. It's like, factor that into your price if you can't figure it out on your own,
Yeah. No, that's a very good point.
Yeah.
So you ready for a quiz? I wrote a quiz.
Let's go.
Okay. So just want to throw this out there. I looked a lot of these answers up. I came up with the questions, but I had to look these answers up to be sure. Like you said too, I'm not a fucking expert here on this stuff. My brain holds enough knowledge in all this stuff to get by, and then I go and research the rest. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But here we go. This is sort of a true vintage quiz, okay?
Let's get it.
Okay, what year was the big E replaced by the small e?
There is no exact answer to that because there is crossover, but generally speaking, 1971.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. So basically, you're right. The crossover was between like 71 to 73-ish when they phased it out, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Good. Okay, good. Nice one. Nice one. What year did they remove the cinch back or buckle back on the XX?
So the World War II model, I believe, is the first model post cinch back. So the 1930s XX into the early 40s is going to be the cinch, but once that World War II model dropped, it was a wrap for that. So I'm not exactly, that was probably consistent with the Conservation Act. Can't pinpoint the exact year off the dome, but it's going to be that era.
Yeah, totally.
Is that an acceptable answer?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's right. I didn't even write the year down, but I think when I looked it up, it was like 43, 44, which again is World War II era.
Yeah.
And the Conservation Act, like you mentioned, was when the government said you had to minimize resource use on all production, right?
Yeah, man. And this is what we're looking at right after World War II. So this is the first like XX. That's really the blueprint to like the jeans that we have today, because they were able to get jiggy and bring everything back. And you get the 501s like we got now, man. This is a beautiful pair right here.
That pair is so
and
dark,
actually,
dude.
What's crazy about this pair too, which makes them extra rare, is you can see, it's hard to see, but there are copper backed buttons on the fly, which is old stock. I couldn't tell you when they stopped making the copper buttons, but it was definitely at least 1930s. So this pair, even though it's a post-World War II, they brought back the copper old stock for this, making them a little bit of a extra rare piece. So
it's crazy. What size is that? That's a good size too, eh?
Yeah, man. These are, you can still, it's not complete jerky. You can kind of read it in the right light. I want to say these are tagged to 34, but they're probably like closer to a 30.
Yeah. So when he refers to the jerky patch, that is when the back tag was leather, it kind of shrivels up and gets hard like a piece of beef jerky.
Yeah, looks like beef jerky. Yeah, that's where it comes from.
Yeah. So yeah, during World War II, the Levi's had to ditch the arcuate.
Yes.
The
arcuate, whatever they say. Yeah.
And what else did they ditch?
They were hand painted on too, the arcuate. So it's like they had a stencil with the little like stitching, and so it's like if you find a World War II pair with the fucking little painted arcuate still there, that's like crazy rare, because those would wear right off. Yeah. And then they also ditched the rivets on the coin pocket. And they also would use donut buttons sometimes on the fly, as opposed to the full metal like branded Levi's buttons. And then they would have like, wonky, funky material in the pockets. Like I've seen ones with like HBT material. I've seen ones with like plaid.
Oh, that's sick, dude.
Yeah.
Those are just like the unicorns where you're like, you're probably not going to find this again. And there's only a few pairs made. It was just using scrap fabrics.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
That's
Although
cool.
I have seen ones with the actual Levi branded buttons too. So there's no like, that was a wild era where there's no consistency. But if you find a pair with no arcuate and you look at the coin pocket and the rivets are gone, that's a World War II pair right there, man.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay, on to the next question. Why is it called the hookless zipper?
I've had some hookless zippers, but I think I'm stumped on that one, man.
Okay. I just recently learned this. There's a great podcast episode by these guys called Heddles, and they actually interviewed John Gluckow.
Okay.
All about zippers. So I listened to a whole zipper podcast. So apparently before, the hookless was the first zipper with teeth, the first real zipper with proper teeth. And the early models of zippers actually had like hook and eyes.
Ooh, okay.
They tried to like make it work with hooks. And then I guess once they finally created the teeth one, they were like, we're calling it the hookless because every model before that was this weird hook thing that didn't actually work. It like pulled apart. Yeah,
I'm looking around to see if I got any hookless zipper. I don't have any hookless zippers here like today, but that makes perfect sense. I just know when it says hookless on it, I see $signs,
Well, that's basically the best zipper for age and style you can find, besides probably some super rare military ones.
On my page, like about a year ago, I had a crazy like 20s pullover with the hookless half zip. That was nutty, man. One of my favorite pieces I've found. So
it was like a moleskin vibe, or what was it?
No. It was a wool hoodie.
A wool hoodie, okay.
Wool hoodie, two-tone, from Pauling, New York. It said Pauling, New York on it.
And that was probably a sports sideline warm-up, right?
Yeah, I think it was maybe like I would assume it was maybe the high school, like the high school sports piece. Yeah. It was black and red, and it's just a crazy piece, man. It's on my page.
Nice.
One of my favorite pieces. So, hookless zippers, I love them.
Okay, on to the next question.
All right, so I failed that one.
You're doing good, man. You're doing good. And again, I looked all this shit up, so.
Word.
What does the word stifle mean?
It is the last name of the man who created the fabric, no?
Okay, well, maybe I got to double check my facts.
Okay.
I believe it means boot in German.
It may, but I also think wasn't the
it was the guy's name.
It was JB's. I think is it stifle or is it stifle? That's like that's a real question, man.
I say stifle, but yeah, maybe it's stifle.
Tomato. Like I think it might actually be like stiefel if you say it with a German accent. But either way, you're probably right.
Yeah.
That's probably where the boot
maybe we're both right. Maybe I'm wrong. Who knows?
Because I was just JB.
We'll have to double check the facts.
Stifle and Sons, right? Is the name.
But basically, I wanted to ask that because let's talk about Stifle. Have you had many pieces from them?
Yeah, I've had some overalls and here's a little scrap ball of some scraps right here.
Oh, sick.
But yeah, I've had some funky stuff, man. I had a like a homemade apron kind of recently that had all different mixed fabrics on it, like some calicos and stuff like that. And then I flipped the pocket inside out and saw the boot. That was a nice little treat. But
so I was doing a bit of research.
Yeah.
I'm familiar with it to a degree, but it's not the kind of thing you see very often, like we've all had maybe a handful of pieces, if that.
Well, that one you guys had was crazy recently.
Yeah, that was super sick. And that was probably one of the best ones we've ever had. A lot of the times we'll get scrap ends of pieces, that aren't just torn up.
Yeah.
I read that it was such a statement piece back in the day to have a stifle garment that people would rock them inside out to show the boot.
To show the boot? Oh, that's
pattern.
crazy.
Yeah.
I love that. That's amazing. And the funny thing about it, I don't know if anyone else has said this, but this is just my personal take, is part of the reason why it's so rare is because it's like the flimsiest fabric. And it was supposed to be workwear. And it just wears right out. And that's why it's like when at the time it scraps or it doesn't exist, it's like not a durable fabric. You know what I'm saying? It's not like denim. It's like it's very light.
It's like between a linen and a denim.
Yeah, so it's like I think that's probably why you don't see it all the time, because there's not a lot of it to survive.
Very true. Okay, next question.
Yes, sir.
What was the code name for the very first flight jacket?
Code name.
Well, not code name, but like the military.
Well,
name.
I'll tell you this. I had an A1. I had a crazy A1. I don't know if that's what you're talking about.
Yeah, that's what we're looking for.
Okay, word up. Yeah.
So,
Again,
how did you acquire this A1? Did it have a tag, by the way?
Oh yeah, man. It's on my page. It has a crazy patch. I bought it in an auction, and I got it for like a good price. I paid, but like I got it and I sold it, and apparently it's gone through a few hands of some people I know behind the scenes, man. And somebody who originally owned it and wanted to buy it back in the auction was sitting there and were blowing me out of the water with their bid. But like the electricity went out in his warehouse that moment of the piece.
No shit. So he missed the auction because the electricity went out?
Yeah, man.
Oh, bird.
Shall remain nameless, but yeah.
That's crazy. So
it's on my page though. If you want to see it.
I went and checked it out, but everyone here, go check it out. Bowie Coke Mirror. Obviously go follow.
Right.
It's a very simple styling of a jacket. It's super nice. It's leather, has like
beautiful leather, man.
Rib collar, ribbed waistband,
two patch pockets.
Yeah, two patch pocket.
Yeah.
And that was basically the first version of what we know as the flight jacket, and then they went on to make the A2.
Right.
The A2 is now the most, besides the motorcycle jacket, the most famous silhouette of a leather jacket of all time.
Sure. I mean, that's the Arthur Fonzarelli right there, pretty much, man.
Totally. Everyone will remember it from like Top Gun. Or these famous films, and they still make them. Schott makes them to this day, and will never stop making them.
Averex makes them. Yeah.
But the A1 kind of like only had that short-lived period.
Yeah. It's an acquired taste, I feel like. I love the design, but it's not as universal as the A2. It's more like, it's a vibe, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a little more like simplistic, but with a certain type of detail to it that's like not as universally appealing, I feel like, as like later stuff.
Yeah, completely. And, half of that, like the fame of that jacket, obviously, probably with the media of World War II, blew it up where people see it like in the media and the newspapers, and it's like the jacket of the heroes, right?
Exactly, yeah.
And that's kind of how the motorcycle jacket gained all its fame too, was like the wild ones through movies. Because before that movie, if you look back through biker culture wasn't like a gang kind of badass vibe. It was more like a bunch of like dads and moms going to like the track to like just speed around their motorcycles in whatever utility clothing they had.
Totally. Yeah.
It's interesting how those phenomena kind of happen,
Totally. And then even much later with like Easy Rider and all that, and like the dudes coming back from the Vietnam War, needing that camaraderie to like, stick together was like, I think had a lot of influence on the motorcycle jacket popularity as well.
And the A2 too, to me, it's still super rare. The A2 is still super rare. And if you get a good A2 in good conditions, it's a great jacket.
I've actually never had an A2, man. But really? I've like, the reason I didn't, because they're always expensive, when you see good ones, you know what I mean? And like, but I would love to have one with a crazy painted back just for my collect. That's like something that's like the right one has kind of evaded me a little bit, but yeah, no, you get the artwork on the back. It's amazing.
Yeah,
right?
We've had a few.
Yeah,
and they made that jacket basically through World War II.
Yeah,
and that was it. But then something like the G1.
Yeah.
Once they started creating the G1, They
Right.
ran that jacket for like 50 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you like can find that jacket through like
Yeah.
all these different eras. It's weird, but the A2
Yeah.
and the A1, you're only finding it authentic from those periods.
And there's like 80s ones too, no? The like, G1s that are actual military issue, or did they kind
Yeah,
of
they
keep
probably
out?
are. Like they go from the black tag to the white tag, and then you have the
Yeah.
ones with the stencil on the neck, and
Yeah. Yeah. The Vietnam one. Stuff like that. Yeah.
and a lot of those A1s too. Like you found one with a tag, but with
Yeah.
all military clothing, they're sent out to like different manufacturers. They're just getting from wherever they can. A lot of
Yeah.
those didn't have tags. I'm pretty sure the original A1s.
Yeah. There wasn't a lot of manufacturers with the contract, I guess. But yeah, no, I was blessed. The one I had was a crazy piece, so it had all the bells and whistles. Like I said, I can't remember with the squadron patch on it, but it had a crazy squadron patch and all that. So that was dope. That was dope. Yeah.
Okay, continuing on with the quiz. Okay, what does the term hige refer to?
Repeat that, please.
Hige. Hige is a Japanese term for what?
Probably something they don't want me to.
H-I-G-E.
Probably something they don't want me to know.
Hige is the Japanese term for natural whiskering on denim.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, yeah.
So it actually means like beard or whiskers or something. And they refer to it for the wear on denim.
All right. Duly noted, man.
Okay.
I know like Takai, like it's too expensive, you know.
Takai, yeah.
Yeah, dude.
We have this one Mackinac.
Yeah.
Mackinac, which is no discount. Or at least that's what I've been told, and I use it.
All right. I'm jotting this down, man. I need this.
Okay. Another question. What is older, the trunk up bandana or the trunk down bandana?
That's gonna be the trunk down, man. That's the original, yeah. Yeah. Trunk ups are great too, though.
I guess the story goes that they flipped up the trunk because other brands were starting to copy them and put out elephant and fake elephant stuff. So like, we got to keep it on and up, keep ourselves different. So they switched it up.
Yeah, those are classic, man.
2 more questions. What do the points on point blankets refer to?
I definitely knew this at one point. The point blankets refer to like, is it the size?
It is the size, but it's also something else.
Okay. Give me a clue, man.
It's what they were traded for.
The amount of beaver, right? Yeah, okay. I mean,
totally.
Yeah.
That was a weird one. I'm very into my Canadian history, and like Hudson Bay was always like a huge, more of a Canadian thing, right?
Yeah, but it was the pipeline of trade down the East Coast, right? Like
totally
wherever, yeah. So.
And there's American point blanket companies for sure.
Yeah, the Hudson Bay, that's the classic for sure.
And yeah, each point you can get like a 4-point blanket, and that would have been traded for 4 beaver pelts at the time.
Okay. Yeah.
And then it obviously means it's a bigger blanket, more beaver pelts, and whatever.
Yeah. All
right. Who put the original Z-Boys team together? Dogtown and Z-Boys. Who put the Z-Boys together?
Oh, I know this, man. It was the dude who had the surf shop, right?
Yeah,
and
totally.
It was the I can't think of his name, but I know like he had the surf shop, and then Stacy Peralta was the hung out at the surf shop and dressed him up.
So the original, it was Jeff Ho, who owns Zephyr Surfboards, which was the original Z-Boys kind of like team.
The Zephyr team, yeah.
The Zephyr team. And I guess Craig Stesick and Skip Ingblom as well were part of the crew. And I think they all opened the shop together, but it was mainly Jeff Ho. Yeah, no, that's and who's that crazy lady that was on the team, like the I forget her name, but Pam O or something like that. Yeah, totally crazy. Yeah. No, I couldn't even tell you the original team members besides like 3 or 4 names. Right, Alva and yeah, but it's cool era to talk about because I think a lot of people don't know I just like to touch on it because that era was so influential in
Yeah.
history, and probably partially in your childhood because you grew up in
Yeah,
the
man.
90s skating, and that was like the
Ooh.
generation before us that
Yeah.
got us into it,
Yeah. Well, that was all the old stock stuff at the skate shops when I was a kid. You'd find some old H-Town shirt or something, or like whatever, some SMA. Like,
Totally.
and I was into that stuff, man. I was always digging in the back.
One thing I forgot to mention is I heard you're a breakdancer, dude.
Yeah. I mean, I was more of a pop, like a popper than a breaker, man. I never really was on the full b-boy tip, but I was like, I used to pop, man, and I was into like, when I first like got into like hip hop, you could say, you actually had to like be a practitioner of the elements to actually be like, yo, I'm a hip hop kid. You know what I mean? Like, you couldn't just be a fan of the music. I mean, you could, but like from my perspective, like people I was around, you actually had to do it, man. So, I used to pop and do all that kind of stuff, man. Freestyle.
Do you still dabble?
Yay. I still dabble, man. We could throw, could throw on a beat, man. I don't know.
No, I'm not going to ask you to dance on the show.
Yeah,
that would be rad, though. But
yeah, I will, man. Actually, if you scroll down far enough on my IG, there is a little clip of me popping. You can find it. Yeah.
Maybe I'll have to cut that into this episode.
Cut it in, man. Yeah.
Sick. Well, you did. That was good. You pretty much, you're like 75% or so on that quiz. Some random questions in there.
Hey, man.
But the knowledge is deep, Sam. The knowledge is deep.
Yeah, of course, man. Always learning, man.
I also heard that you carry around T-shirts in your trunk in case you happen to find somebody who's buying at any given time.
Yeah, I've been known to do it, man. I'm buying anyway. I'm on the road all the time anyway, linking and buying, and sometimes stuff just stays in the trunk, man, and you never know. And I might just pop up at a flea market near you. You never know.
Do you have any stories of randomly just like popping the trunk and making some deals?
It's funny because this was kind of recently, man. It was I believe it was after the last Vintage Rendezvous, so maybe 2019. And I wasn't going to set up at the Rose Bowl that weekend. I was just going to like shop it. But I had all my gear from the show. And somebody told me that like, because, when I go to the Rose Bowl, I pull up, when the dealers pull up, and I try and, I'll buy a space just so I can be in. But I like didn't get a space that time. And somebody told me that like people were coming like an hour early, like people were showing up at like 2-3 o'clock and doing deals in the parking lot. So I rolled out. I got there at like maybe 2:30, something like that. And lo and behold, there was like this little like crazy like cluster of people just like going nutty in the parking lot, outside the parking lot. And I just threw all the T-shirts on my trunk and like cashed out like an hour before I could even go in the thing. So you never know, man. Just keep the stuff,
That's the secret. You got to get them early. You got to get them before their pockets are empty, which is first thing in the morning.
Yeah, and another time I was in LA, man, I always hit up this burrito spot on Sunset next to Ragmop Vintage. I forget the name of the spot, but it's like a little cut, like right on Sunset. They have a little parking lot. And I was just chilling. I had like, I think I was going home that day, and I was just chilling eating a burrito. And do you know Hellhound? Great dealers in LA. They pulled up to get a burrito, and so I popped the trunk, and we made it happen, man.
That's so rad.
Yeah. Yeah, good times, man. Always on it, man. There's no days off, man.
Fucking right. You gotta live it, man.
I live it, man.
Do you have any digging stories you can share with us?
Yeah, sure, man. I mean, there's been some crazy ones. Like one of the first good workwear hits I ever had. I could say not a super crazy story, but like there was this dude there's like this one flea market that I always go to start my Sunday morning at this particular flea market. I start there at like 4 a.m. and just work my way through the day. And like there was this one season, this crazy dude, like vampire looking motherfucker, like 7 foot tall, crazy clean out guy, started pulling up, and you just like throw junk everywhere and just like you cash in, you're getting cashed out, but everything was like so cheap, and he's like all about it, just cashing out with like big crazy voice. And he had some like kind of he had some like kind of dry roddy like dead stock work shirts one day, and I was just like, yo, started chatting with him, and finally he said he's been doing clean outs for a while, and for some reason he doesn't know anything about clothing, but he had an inkling to like stash anything that he thought looked good and old. And he let me come by one day, and I go out to the sticks to where he is, and like he had everything tossed like all over his lawn, like just like some of the oldest overalls I've ever had, multiple overalls, buckle back jeans, a crazy leather car coat, just like all this shit. And like, it was pretty amazing, man. It was like the first like really good, like workwear hit that I had, where I just got all this old stuff all in one shot. There was some old pin check overalls and like, cool stuff. There was like some Navy uniforms that were all bloody and like just hectic, man. It was like hectic. But it was amazing, and it just like, it was invigorating, I just like,
that
had to do it again,
fires you up, man.
Yeah. So
the
I mean,
the prices were probably great.
Prices were good, man. He was happy, everyone was happy, and there's a lot of little stories like that. It's a lot of little moments, man. I never had some crazy big like, like Larry was saying how he took off the tarp and like a
whole table full of seconds.
But it's the little, man, it's those little moments, that really, I've had some good surprises where I've pulled up on people that didn't know what to expect, but it's been really fruitful. So just the consistency is the craziness, I'd say. It's just always on it, always being ready.
Yeah, you gotta be. You never know where opportunity
is and being
knock,
liquid
man.
too. You know what I mean? That's important too in the business. Is being liquid and just always being ready. You never know when you're gonna get that call, man.
Yeah, and that being liquid has come up a couple times on the show where people, I think people are so quick to just jump back into new stock. If they have cash, they're like, I'm just gonna buy whatever comes my way. But like, you kind of got to be strategic and have something balance, for that right deal.
And that's something I'm getting better at all the time, man. Because I'll spend cash just as quick as I get it. Like if there's no one there to stop me. But it's all good.
Yeah.
It takes money to make money, right?
Well, for sure. I mean, you got to invest in the right stuff.
Yeah.
But then again, you got to be ready for the big score. And I feel like there's going to be a lot more big scores coming up here.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I have a feeling like people are going to start trying to sell collections, and
yeah, man.
Who's going to be ready?
Right? I mean, yeah, man. I mean, there's a lot of old timers coming to the end here, man. You never know what's going to pop up. So
I think there'll be people who are like getting out, people who maybe now are like, we're in it before, but realizing like, I don't need the money, and I'm kind of just getting out of the business because I'm semi-retired anyway. Or youngsters who jumped in so heavy. Yeah. And then they're like, maybe I should probably cash out these $100,000 worth of T-shirts I have.
Right. For the T-shirts, certainly, man. People are definitely holding right now. That's not going to last forever. So
I feel like everybody has a collection of something they're holding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when we were talking earlier, when you were asking me earlier about like, do I have attachment to stuff? I have been a crazy collector my whole life, man. I started with like comic books, records. And then I have an insane, massive collection of graffiti ephemera, man. All the early zines and everything from the mid-'80s to the mid-'90s. I just have thousands of pieces of that shit. And I love that, and I'll never sell it. And part of the what was kind of refreshing when I got into the clothing biz was, for some reason, that's just not there, man. I'm like happy to sell it. So it's like, but I was able to use my collector mentality to kind of be able to hone in. I think that gave me a little boost in finding good clothing too. So,
what kind of stuff do you have? Like the ephemera, like you're talking magazines and.
Yeah, magazines, man. I mean, so like, in the early to mid 80s, there was a magazine called the International Graffiti Times that was started by a photographer and sort of this anarchist, like downtown Lower East Side fixture, this cat named David Schmidlap. And he linked up with the writer Phase Two and a couple other of his friends and started this amazing broadsheet fold out zine that folded up like a subway map. And that sparked a truly international network of people from mostly in Europe first before it really spread to a lot of the major cities in the US, of creating this kind of pen palish like network of zines. And graffiti magazines, like from the mid 90s up until today, sort of took a different like twist to what this first wave that I'm super interested in was all about at the time. And I just like, I was at the age sort of in the middle of that where I became hip to it and started collecting even back then, you know, as early as when I was like 11, 12 years old, and just like made it a crazy mission to just focus on the inception to the mid 90s of amassing this archive. And I've actually done projects with it. I was part of an exhibit a few years back at Red Bull Studios, had a graffiti exhibit and stuff like that. So that's stuff I'm just super into on a personal level and just have been a collector of. But definitely, it's funny because I do have some crazy early graffiti T-shirts that were only available through some of these mail orders and stuff like that I keep as a part of that collection.
Yeah,
you know? Yeah,
that's rad.
So, yeah, just
did you write graffiti?
Yeah, man, I got into it super duper young and just kind of like rocked with it. And like, I mean, I haven't been active in a long time, but
and you were talking before about the elements, right? And that is a key element.
Yeah, man, exactly.
The elements are DJing, the music, dancing, and the art.
Yeah, and yeah, exactly. So
that's awesome, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really hard to find any of that graffiti clothing, you know. I have a stash of the later stuff, the 90s cartoon graffiti drawing type stuff.
I had all of that too, man.
And I just love that shit because that was what I bought when I was a kid.
No, I know, man. That's why I was bugging when you did the Stash Raiders with Chris, because it's like everything you were pulling out, I was like, oh, that's it, man. That is it. I'm so glad you're bringing that to light, man. You know?
Yeah, I really just brought a real random cross section of shit that I appreciate. You know?
Yeah.
And totally. But as far as that early 80s graffiti stuff, I don't have any pieces, man. You know, and I don't think there was probably such low numbers of any of that stuff produced, that if at all, you know.
Yeah, well, one cool T-shirt that I have that is somewhere down on my page is there was a store called Soho Zat, which was down in like Canal Street and West Broadway, and they were kind of like a funky head shop, like, you know, all kind of underground type of stuff at the time. And they were the first people to carry that International Graffiti Times, the IGT. So there's a lot of history there. And the store actually ended up having several iterations. I believe it still exists today, called Scrapyard. And it's like always been evolved into like a graffiti store where you can buy caps and paint and all kinds of stuff like that. But I have a 70s head shop-ish era like Soho Zat shirt that's like super cool. I'll never sell that, man. That's going with the magazines, you know.
Yeah. No, the nostalgia outweighs any kind of potential profit there.
Yeah, find another too, you know.
Exactly. Okay, man. Well, that was a rad episode, dude. Thank you for coming on.
Yo, man.
Is there anything else you want to kind of talk about before we give some shout outs?
Yeah, man. I mean, I think we covered a lot of ground here, man. I appreciate all the questions, and hopefully people really find this useful and maybe learn something, listen to it again. I'm here learning from you, so it's a great exchange. And Yeah, man.
It's rad. I
just to go,
didn't really know you before this, but now I feel like we're buds.
yeah, man. Yeah, well, you know, the funny thing is I ran into Jesse at the Rose Bowl like maybe a little over a year ago, and you weren't there that day, and he asked me like, yo, did Drew hit you up about the podcast, like doing a podcast? And I was like, nah, but yo, tell him anytime, man. I'm down, you know. And that was like a year and a half ago, and
he definitely didn't tell me.
Oh, really? Word. I don't know. But shout out to Jesse, man. But here we are. So yeah.
Yeah, no, I've obviously like you're on my radar, and I'm glad we connected. But I think what sparked me to hit you up this just right now was seeing you on Thrift Lord.
Oh, word!
I was like, yo, Bowie come here. I need to get him on.
Yeah, no, shout out to Taryn, man. I mean, that to me, he is truly one of the best in the biz today. You know what I mean? Can't take nothing away from that dude. So I'm glad
he crushes it, man. He crushes it. We talk often. He's my homie.
Yeah, and you saw me on there apparently. So that's he's doing big things.
Yeah, fuck yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, for a young dude, he's like 21.
Killing it, man. Great guy, man. Yeah.
Okay, because this is an East Coast episode, I want you to give us some East Coast shout outs. Like, who do you think right now needs to get put on the East Side?
Whew, man. I mean, just shout out to all my guys in Boston, man. Everyone's just doing great stuff, man. Tonight, after I leave here, I'm heading over to my boy Disorder Vintage's spot, and we're going live with our boy DeAndre, High Society, HS Vintage. We've been doing a little Tuesday night live thing, man, selling some great t-shirts. Shout out to those guys, man. And, you know, Strange Desires, obviously, shout out, you know, putting you on some behind the scenes stuff. And those are still my people. So it's just everyone, man. I'm just grateful to be, you know, around people that are doing stuff, and you know, it's a great local scene. I love all the West Coast people and worldwide, man. So shout out to everybody, man. Nothing but love.
I'm glad you found your creative calling in vintage, dude.
I'm digging it now, man. We'll see where the future holds, but I'm enjoying myself now, and I'm glad that people are taking note. So thank you, man.
Perfect. Okay, thanks for coming on. We'll end it there.
All right, Drew. Thanks, brother.
Hope you guys enjoyed that episode. I enjoyed recording it. Sam is a great dude. Again, make sure you go check him out at the LA Vintage Rendezvous, February 13th, Huntington Beach, California. Link for the info down below. As always, I appreciate the patrons. If you want to support this show, if you want to get all the good show notes, if you want to see the extra content that we recorded on this episode, some real deep business advice from Bowie Kokemir, go subscribe. You can start at just $5 a month. Go check out FasandFrankVintage.com. Look behind me. We post tons of shit daily, okay? Tons of shit. Use code VTGNStuff. That code will be down in the show notes. VTGNStuff is going to get you 30% off the website, especially for the listeners of the show. Stay tuned. Got the producer. We're going to be pumping out more content. This means lots more good stuff coming soon. Thanks again. See you on the next one.